We're live. Hey, what's up? Okay, guys. So this is Simul G, and I'm really happy tonight. We have the opportunity, which is kind of rare, to be online at the same time after an intense session we just had. With the Veil, the eighth session with the Veil, eight of nine session with the Veil, and an interesting, there was a super interesting situation. So I, I first off, as a disclaimer, I'm not in my bed. I'm in my couch. I just want to say that because 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 some people think I'm in bed and I'm like, hey, naked under the cot. No, I'm just sitting here in my couch and and I'm comfortable. So I had to left early in the last session of the Veil. And usually what we do is we have this great conversation and we analyze, the session when we are warm up, still warm from the session, right after the session. And I had to leave, and it was too bad because it was an important session for the learning process of this group. And this is why I call this live talk anatomy of a learning experience, because I think we have a great opportunity here to learn a lot about this game, the PBTA style game, because we come from three different kind of backgrounds. I mean, like two different kind of, also different generation. I'm really not the same generation of role player than these guys, and also the same age neither. So for me, what's interesting for me is that I had an amazing time. My experience was great. I had no friction. I had no frustration. I had no problem at all with this session, personally. I had a great time. But Runeslinger posted in our group that he didn't had a great time. And I saw that, and I was like, wow, if he's still up, because we're so far away, I was like, it's time to talk about it. And I didn't know about Ivan. Ivan, like when I left, Ivan seemed to have like a frustrating experience as well, but not on the same level that Anthony as the MC had. First thing first, my experience was an experience of reinforcing my character. My character was able to follow his belief. He was challenged on his belief, and the most important one as well, because it's the one that I keep from the beginning, never changed it on my sheet, and I managed to just validate it and reinforce it in cool role-playing interaction with the NPC that came in and the relationship with Tess as well. Personally, everything felt natural on that level. But interestingly enough, it seems like these guys, well, especially Anthony as the MC, was frustrated by that because it felt like he couldn't apply the kind of narrative stuff you wanted to bring the story, in a certain way, or, bring to the table, because the way my character reacted, I'm trying to steel man your position here. So the way my character reacted was like just, difficult and annoying for him, in the sense of, like, what am I supposed to do with that? How can I utilize the system to reinforce what I'm trying to bring to the table? And me personally, I wasn't, my dice felt right. Everything rolled the way I roll was right. I had some great results with the dice as well. So I managed to always, continue with my agenda as a character and as a player. Now, there is some issue personally that I feel like the first frustration that I've received from Anthony the MC was that he was not able to. He felt like I went too far, creating that Victor Z guy, in a sense of when I was going too far with my narration, like bringing back to the table a guy that was kind of like understood he was dead. But it was not really, because the investigation was not done. So on that side, after talking in the post conversation, We had the post-game conversation we had. I don't feel I feel I feel I was in my right to do so, because the platform that I rolled for, the online platform that I rolled for in the Veil, a couple of sessions before, was in place. So I was able to receive messages from. I was already organized online. I was already from last sessions. I did a couple of things where I organize myself online to preach. So I'm like, yeah, it's normal. I receive a message, but actually, what I feel I did with that is that I gave you some leverage, because I say, you know what? Strangely enough, it's not Victor anymore. It's Victor Z. He sent me an email. Is it the same guy? We don't know. I don't know if it came up clear in the narration, but I mean, so for me, it was like a way to introduce my link move, like I said in the conversation. And then I brought this new guy to the table. I roll super well, so I get what I want. I get so as a player, I kind of get control of a lot of things. Like now, it's gonna go in a certain way when next session start, and it's by the rules kind of thing. So that's one thing. The other thing that I got, that I know that was frustrating for Anthony is that I went too far in a certain role. I was supposed to leave him the complication, leave to him the complication, but I didn't understood it that way. I went too fast, and I'm really sorry. It's my mistake. Anthony, criticized me like years ago when we were playing. Do you remember, Anthony, when we played Desolation? You said to me like, "You go too fast. You go too far. You already described the thing, and then the dice are not rolled." So I realize as a learning experience that this is something that I kind of do as a player. I'm really aggressive, so I'm sorry for that. And now, so I know that can bring some frustration, and it's my mistake. Now, but the rest of it, everything was super cool, and I had a lot of fun playing. And I'm eager to learn from these guys what they experienced as well. So I passed the ball to Ivan. So how did you feel about that session?
It was it was an interesting session for me. Part of it, in terms of like the actual fiction, like when I look back at what happened with these characters, as if I was going back to the session and reading it like a story. Um, it was cool. There were with the final product, um, is is cool. Like I enjoyed it, and a lot of it. I talked to Anthony a lot after the session. A lot of it was about like how I was envisioning where my character was going, how she was thinking. There were definitely reasons she was so aggressive. I got to pursue some of her beliefs, um, and it's stuff that's kind of been brewing in my head ever since the last session. So that part was okay. I noticed like procedurally more of my frustrations with the session were kind of with, and I don't want to pick on Powered by the Apocalypse games or pick on the Veil, but there's times that like at least for me, like when some kind of collaboration or collaborative effort without like firmly defined roles, like this is what you do, this is what this is what you can do, or without like firmly defined results. And I think Anthony talked a little bit about like what the consequences might be. Without those kind of borders, collaboration can get kind of messy. And one of the things I've noticed about and I don't think it's just unique to Powered by the Apocalypse games, but I kind of noticed I had that feeling in the session that there's a you can get into a power struggle for the right to narrate, or for the I don't think it's necessarily a conscious power struggle, well, although it could be at times. But there's a struggle inherent in these games that Anthony and I have talked about in the past, based on the mechanics, where it seems like you're setting yourself up with the mechanics for the right to narrate. However, beyond that, sometimes I find that there's loose definitions and part of the way the system behaves, where you can end up in a power struggle outside of the rules for control of what the fiction is, and that can get very frustrating because maybe it's just I'm used to different forms of games, or maybe it's just that we need to adjust the way we're playing this game to play it right, um, where with a lack of that kind of, this is what you're supposed to do, this is the procedure, this is who has control of this or that, it gets very, very fuzzy, and it feels all of a sudden as if it feels very unstable. I'm like, well, how did that just happen? So there were parts of that, parts of the session in that way that were kind of frustrating, and there were parts where, just like I said, at the end of the transcript or whatever, you go looking back over the transcript, like, oh, okay, there's the fiction, the final fiction that emerged. Well, that's cool. The creation of it, in the middle of it, as you're creating it, that felt incredibly clunky. And I just remember that scene of just being, how Yorn's getting thrown out the door. I'm used to that being like that fast. This is what happens. And instead, it was this long, protracted. I remember Jason talking about Star Trek one time about something completely different. He said, "We discussed this thing for 30 minutes through this extended task," and in the fiction, it was about 2 minutes.
I agree. I agree with that. That's a good point. That's a good point.
So the creation of this stew at times was very messy. But that's it. I gotta stop talking.
Okay. Where to begin? Because I've been thinking about this since we stopped talking, I guess 2 hours ago. But so my self-reflection has evolved, but I want to start with my reaction in the moment, because my reaction in the moment controlled everything that happened in the session from my perspective. And I actually feel more positive about Powered by the Apocalypse right now than I have at any point in the campaign. Just a second.
That's interesting. That's interesting. And it did the same to me. I left the session, like I said to you, Ivan, before Anthony came in, and it kept turning in my head, and I said, we need to talk about it. Keep going, Anthony. Yeah.
Sorry. There are two toys. There are two dogs. Both dogs want the same toy.
Fun.
No, I have kids. I know what this is like.
Yeah, no
So, what my reaction was is I get into the scene and I introduce these two NPCs, and they're there because I need to give some reality to the world, right? Cadmus doesn't exist in a vacuum. He had a family, and there were brief mentions in our setup about the characters, and in the early sessions, the ones that you were running, the first 3 sessions, where he's much more self-reflective, right? He's the guy who's always taking selfies and thinking about the past. And so, what or who was he thinking about? So there's this element. So I introduced these characters, the mother and the brother. And the idea of the apartment and the idea of the mother and brother showing up, that was one idea in my head initially, which, because of the results of play of session 7, those things got separated. So because they were introduced into the fiction, we needed to go forward with them in this session, right? There was somebody at the door. Now, I could have changed who was at the door, but I wanted to be true to what had happened before. And I wanted to bring these characters out, the contrast, and they were a great vehicle for testing all the beliefs in the room. Right? Tess is having trouble with humanity. These guys are scum. The brother's not bad, but the mother's a real piece of work. And they're here, and they're going to introduce violence, and they're going to introduce greed, and they're going to introduce jealousy, and they're going to be trying Yorn's main beliefs. So I'm going to bring these characters into the scene, but right from the beginning, I didn't want to. I didn't like the characters. I didn't want to talk in their voice. And I think that set me up to have a negative feeling. And that's all me just introducing an NPC and then not playing them right, and then not not playing them effectively. Even if I chose to run them as an out of character mode, I felt like I wasn't presenting buttons, or I wasn't finding the buttons to push. Like the whole scene was falling flat. Now your experience was different, as you've described, but that's where I am, and I can't see that, and I can't get the sense of your enjoyment because we're on the other side of the earth. Like if we were at the table, I would have a much sharper sense of your reaction. So that's frustrating. And then I'm now looking for a way to enhance my poor presentation of these NPCs to make them have some kind of bite, so that you get a stronger signal of what it was I'm trying to introduce into the fiction. Like these people coming in right in your face, right in your space, and you know, is there any territoriality in Yorn? Is there a line that can be crossed in Yorn? Can he be goaded to violence by language, or by stupidity, or by emotion, or by physicality? You know, let's really see this, because we don't have much time to see that anymore, right? So let's either prove that Yorn has his stuff together, or prove that he doesn't. Now's the time. And I just felt like I totally failed in that scene, and there was nothing in the game that could help me establish that scene. I just had to say it, which meant I had to do stuff that I feel is kind of a cheap technique. You know, like, you take harm, right? Or I've taken your stuff. Or because this could have been a lawyer with a writ, and you guys could have been out on the street. It's the same situation, but I wanted it to be, we're a role-playing group. That's how we react, right? We role play through the moves. We don't really take the writer's room perspective, like, well, in this scene, my character is thinking about his mother, and so is, you know, motivated by this, but he's also conflicted by that, and so I think the correct response would be to do this. That's not us, right? We're role players. So that has the effect of isolating us from some of the effects of the moves and some of the complications introduced by the fiction. So as I was already in a negative place, I was able to take myself further into a negative space and find frustration with the game system. But in talking with Ivan, what I realized was that I was keeping my hands off too much, so as not to put my hands on too much. So I was having too much respect for my current perception of the game, which is not the game, right? We haven't gotten there yet. And this was my moment to screw up, or, you know, to fall down or trip or whatever, and get a closer view of the game and say, right, why am I upset? Because I'm not playing it right. Right. I need to be, and the metaphor we came up with in the chat was, I need to be gravity, right? I need to be the irresistible force, and you need to constantly be dancing to avoid the momentum of the universe, rather than me always be rolling and adapting to whatever's, you know, striking you at the moment. And that's going to be hard for me in this system, because, and here's the big revelation, the mechanics, which are not a surprise to us, the mechanics are about narrative authority. So we roll the dice to see if there's a complication, how many complications there are, and who gets to decide what they are. And what I've just firmly identified as a preference is, I want mechanics which speak to what the consequences are, how deep or strong, or, you know, how big an effect they have. and then our decisions lead to those consequences logically. Being true to the fiction without this intermediary step of seeing who gets to flavor the fiction. And then once we see what the consequences are, we role play through the consequences of them. And I find that less interruptive. So that preference is always going to be there. I think is going to keep warring with me in my implementation of this game. But knowing that it's there, I can come at a gameplay session with practice from a better starting point, I think. So that's the end of my protected time. Let's get into some debate and discussion.
I have so many things I want to say about that. First, there is the first thing I'd like to say that I like to mention is, you know, there was a moment where this is personal, and I hope you guys can feel what I'm saying. Like, I'm not going beyond the thing, but there was a moment in the game where I was role playing, being Yorn, being that, Yorn is like Gendy have a kid with Jesus.
Yeah.
Hit me in the face, I show you the other way. It's just, I don't care. So it's really, really annoying because you cannot make him get out of. I don't, and I don't want to get out of that mode because I didn't want to play the crisis effect, like I've mentioned.
Right.
So that's really just it's a pain in the ass. So after a while, I realized it. And I was role playing, and I was like, it looks like it's becoming just a pain in the ass. Like, it's either I hit it so hard, I hit the guy so hard that he's dead, or he's just bad, and it creates this situation that we all know in role playing, or I let it go, and I just don't know how to go beyond it. So after a while, after the injury, I did something, and I said, you know what? I feel like I'm taking the spotlight. I was feeling like I'm taking the spotlight of the situation because I was role playing. I mean, I'm not role playing necessarily good. It's just that everything I do is just getting in the way, and I roll well, and I'm aggressive. So I feel like, after a while, I felt like I'm taking the spotlight. So when I was injured, I decided to get away. I said, I'm gonna meditate. It's part of my thing, the meditation, because I have this in my selection at the beginning. And I'm just gonna get in front of the window and gonna fall asleep. Right? And so I said, this is gonna give Tess the opportunity to express herself as a character. Because I felt that Tess was doing anything else than just take the gun. I'm taking the gun. I'm just gonna go again. I'm just gonna take the gun. And I was like, fuck, man, this is. I was annoyed. Like, as a player, I was annoyed. I was like, I feel like Tess is left alone, doesn't know what to do, so she takes the gun. And so what I did as a player, and this is me sharing my afterward reflection, because this is stuff that happens, as a reflex, as instinct. I don't plan these things, but after a while, I said, you know what? I've been talking a lot. I've been taking a lot of space because my roles are good and I always achieve everything. So I'm just gonna go out and I'm gonna do my preaching. So I left, and then to help you, Anthony, I proposed. You know what? There's a lot of NPC. I brought the coffee guy. I brought the detective. And there was like these two people. I brought a lot of people. So I said, you know what? I'm going and the two doctors. So I'm like, okay, yep. So let's give you a hand. So I'm gonna go that. So that was me being a really, really like a GM player. So I'm like, okay,
yeah, I like that.
You liked it? Okay, perfect. So because I didn't want to step on your toes. I say I will roleplay the cool giant. He's a cool guy. I'm gonna keep it simple, but at least
he'd been established, right? He's a gentle giant, forced into a life of being a gladiator.
There you go. So
that was his whole character.
So I hope you didn't mind that. So I just wanted to share my thinking toward that. And then also now on the other hand, I said after the morning after, let's have a discussion, Tess. And Tess started to argue me, like trying to find a problem in my fate. Like, okay, so it's your friend, so your friend is not a problem. So I was like, I don't want to get into that discussion. And Tess is always asking questions. Since the beginning of everything, I'm wondering what it is to be a human. I'm wondering what it is to feel that emotion. So Tess is not active. She is opening problems, asking questions about humanity, which is core to the character, but is a burden for for me as a player, because I'm like, what do you think we should do? I don't know what we should do. What do you think your friends is worth dying? Do you think you're And I'm like, I don't want to think about that because it's way too far. So do you think
I think what Jorn didn't realize at that moment is that he was on trial.
Yeah,
She was not asking him questions because she was curious about humanity. She was asking him to prove whether or not he was actually worth saving, or not even worth saving, worth associating with. Jorn was on trial.
yeah, I mean, it was just, I was like, me as a player, the character is so dogmatic, he doesn't even care. But me as a player, I was like, that conversation I don't want to have. I want to make the story go. So what do you think we should do? And it was good because you gave me the information of what's going on. So you remembered me as a player, like what Cadmus tried to do, and so I'm like, perfect. That's perfect. So I make a link between what he's trying to do and the purpose of the fate. Brought that together. Now I have an intention, a clear intention for next session. And your character, not you, but your character saw that, like Tess saw that as egotistical and dogmatic and like and all that. So for me as a player, it was really hard with Tess because Tess either get the gun or ask questions instead of proposing ideas and solutions. And that is okay because it's just the same as my character. My character is super dogmatic. He just want to preach, and so that's what I do. And so your character is becoming human, kind of thing, like just wondering what's the difference between both. Just asking questions. Reach a point where my character is like, okay, so you have your gun out in the lobby of this building. You have your gun out in the apartment now. You're pointing your gun at people, asking if they want coffee at the same time. Like, let's just have a conversation. And then the friction started there, I think, between these two. So my mindset toward Tess is like, she's really just a robot. She doesn't understand anything. Right now, as Jorn and as a character, that's really where he stands, and it's okay because, I mean, there's a difference between humans and synthetic entities, right?
Yeah,
What do you think, Ivan? What do you think, Ivan, about this analysis?
it's funny though, because I mean, Tess's view of Jorn is almost identical. He's just a robot. This happens, you preach. This other thing happens, you preach. This other thing happens, you preach. Jorn has one response to everything too. So they're at loggerheads because their response happens to be different.
Mm-hmm. And I realized that as I was playing, and I felt that it's interesting because it fits the theme. Do you know the movie Blade Runner? In Blade Runner, there is this whole debate, like, is Deckard the replicant? You guys ever heard about that?
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's because when you watch the movie, the fucking robot, the replicant, and especially in the first one, even in the second one, they feel more human than the real human.
Deckard does.
Yeah, there you go. There we go. So it's perfect, right? It
He
suits us.
criticizes Leon for his photographs. This apartment is full of
Yeah,
photographs. There's nobody in
yeah,
his life.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's so, and it's emergent. So for that, I would give a thumb up to the game because it managed to produce. Because I didn't thought about that at all. I cannot plan that. I really improv everything, and it's just it does it right.
So here's a little bit of MC. Uh, who noticed the Blade Runner reference in today's session?
I think I didn't saw that. I didn't
What's
saw
the
that.
original title of Blade Runner?
Do
Oh
Android
yeah.
have sheep? Do Android dreams of sheep?
Yeah.
Yes, that I've noticed. I'm like, oh yeah,
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 that's
yeah,
funny. Yeah.
yeah, Ivan, that was great. And you know my answer. I said I don't dream because that's so. This is and this is a true story. My ex-girlfriend, the girl I talked to you earlier, Ivan, I spent 10 years with her. I bought the house with her. She's a dreamer. She was dreaming every night, and she recalled the dream, and she wrote the dream, and she was talking to me about the dream, and it was intense and everything. And me, I was waking up every morning, and I don't remember my dream. And I just don't dream. I'm the kind of dude that don't dream. So when you came to me and you said, you know about dream, and I mentioned in the scene before that I was dreaming. I was in the corner and I said in my direction, I'm dreaming, and I'm having these. This is me.
Which
I
is
actually, I actually, I actually shared with you guys what I do. I'm a fucking jerk. Like
Yeah.
I have these
Spasms. Yeah.
yeah, these spasms. So I dream hardcore. I just don't remember. And so I just I played that. I just played that.
which is perfect. I mean, this theme of humanity has
Yeah,
run all the way through. We've got
yeah,
mortality through Cadmus. We've got spirituality through Yorn, and we have identity through Tess. And I think this is the link between very very unusual combination of playbooks that we brought together for this,
yeah, yeah.
and the the opportunity to explore an an outcome which can itself be an ambivalent question looks to be the direction that we're heading. Right. The hallmark of the whole campaign has been questions with no answers.
Yeah.
And sometimes the characters go away and evaluate things that they've heard. Right. Uh, Tess and Cadmus having the long conversation on the line going up north. And Yorn and Cadmus talking about separateness versus belonging. Some of these had impact on the characters and some of these didn't, but the conversations were important to everybody involved. So that could be the kind of story that we are creating together, rather than and they accomplished a thing. It's hard to say.
It's really hard to say. One thing though is that when I was talking with Cadmus, I was trying to convince him. He didn't buy it, and this is why I left him alone. So he died alone. I have to deal with that grief as a character. It's like fuck. So my belief then afterward was he didn't die in vain. And then Tess, I say Tess, Cadmus didn't die in vain. I want to preach his story. I want to make him a martyr. Tess is like, religion is bullshit. And I'm like, all right, just like Cadmus, I just don't follow you. I don't agree. So I'm going my own way, and it's cool story. Because the thing though is in role playing games, we too often, this is me now. This is Samuel just like going really, really. Even in my first days of vlogging, I was talking about I don't care about splitting the party. This idea of this group that has to agree, that has to follow, it's artificial. It's so artificial, and it's just boring as hell. Fine, like forcing myself to agree with you, going beyond character. I find that just annoying because it's the idea that we need to be in the same spot at the same time and we'll play together to get the common goal and then create a Hollywood movie. Fuck that.
Right.
No, for real. I mean,
Now,
I just said that. I just
we
said
did
it.
talk about that a little bit after you had to leave, about splitting the party, and then that moment that I had to make that decision. As Tess is sitting there slamming her coffee cup on the table,
Yeah.
and there was that split second where I thought to myself, okay, well, I know exactly what Tess would do right now because she's just pissed off. She sees right through you. Um, and there was that instinct, in me that like, oh, I shouldn't split the party. We should probably,
You.
but it wasn't even like, for like, oh, because we'll survive. It's just like, maybe we should all have this story. I'm like, well, screw that. She's pissed off at him.
Yeah.
She's out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it made me think of the experiences I had earlier this year when I was playing a different game with some other people, and I had this like existential crisis playing a version of one of the original games I played, where my character all of a sudden was like, why the hell? I'm not going to go on this goddamn home ground. This is ridiculous. Some of the other players were like, what are you talking about? We're supposed to go on the hole in the ground. I was like, well, this sounds like a crazy idea, and that was the conceit of that game. But I enjoy the fact that we're really able to have this character versus character moments. I think what I got disappointed in this session is Cadmus and Yorn have been able to have conversations. Yorn and Tess have been able to have Cadmus and Tess have been able to have conversations. It seems to be tough for Yorn and Tess to really have a conversation. And I was talking. I was thinking about this afterwards. Like, man, there seemed to be some times during the session where all three of us at some point missed each other. Like we're just kind of not latching on to each other's cues.
Yeah.
And
Right.
Our friend Brian talks a lot about yes and the whole rule of improv is like when somebody throws something out there, grab onto it. And so it seemed like almost a couple of times that we had this opportunity to in that conversation they were starting to have, where I guess we could have compromised, might be the right word, or just kind of latched on and had a little bit more of a conversation, but not. I wouldn't want it to be artificial.
Yeah, I know, man. It's so fucking hard because when we started to talk, I'm like, so tell me what happened that day, right? What happened that day when there was a massacre? And then you said to me like,
she wouldn't.
and yeah, you
because she wasn't there.
Yeah, you say. So I said I had bad information.
Yeah, it's like X66 and X45 killed him, not me.
Yeah,
I killed him.
Perfect. So I'm like, okay. So then I kept on going, and I said, and you say, but you asked me like, what difference does it make if it's your friend or not? Yeah, it's not. And you were.
Well, yeah, and it was.
It was so
it was just one of those things that occurred.
I was on trial.
It was one of the things that occurred. It was one of the things that occurred to Tess because Yorn was like, "Yeah, so you killed." You're like, "What happened when you killed my friends?" And it's like, "Well, I wasn't there. I killed a lot of other people." And you're like, "Oh, okay." And Tess like, "Well, wait a minute. They're all people. Wait a minute."
And I felt. I understand.
Like, oh, no.
And yeah, I understood it, and I was like, I don't want to go into an argument. I just want to know. I want to help Anthony. I was in my head. I was like, how can we help?
Go somewhere.
Get the fuck out. Yeah, there's exactly. So I was like, okay. So what do you recommend? So you see, there's this conglomerate of shit. I don't know what. Yeah. So let's go there. What do you think we should? And then you said, I don't know. And then I said, man, he doesn't know. Okay, I'm gonna create something. And then after a while, after this conversation, you gave me some info. And I managed to connect the dot, and I say, okay, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna use my platform and all that, and then I'm gonna expose because that's what I remember. That's what Cadmus wanted to do. Now
the same thing happened between you and me.
Yeah,
right. You
definitely.
You reached out to the detective, and the detective said, "Come talk to me here." And he had a very specific reason for that. But come talk to me here.
And I said, no, I don't want to go.
No.
I want to go to Akhenaten. Yeah.
All right then.
But I have all the info, so I'm gonna go to Akhenaten. I'm gonna give him the info, and then I'm gonna try to accomplish what I want to do.
That's something I want to talk about for a second.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Because that was a miscommunication.
It's an online thing. It's an online.
Yeah, but it's like socially. like for some reason, like when I described that you guys had received the data dump from Cadmus, it was encrypted in Yorn's chip.
Right.
And then the presence of the two of you in that place and that time, because you're searching for it, you trigger it and you decrypt it. You have it all.
Right.
Oh, I missed that. I
So
missed that completely.
I don't know why it is, but in the middle of role play, not in the middle of discussion or the middle of out of character, well, I think my character would be, I don't mind interrupting that ever. But in the middle of role play, I feel like my lips are sealed, right? So you're in the moment, you're trying to find your way from A to B in role play, you're trying to inhabit the character, and the information you're using is wrong. And I don't want to say, oh, but wait,
Yeah.
what you really know is this.
Um,
It carries more weight when it's, no, you don't understand what your character knows, or your character wouldn't say that, right? It's something I don't want to do. I don't want to even be in the position to have to do it.
Yeah.
It only seems to actually stop me from speaking in this game. This is what I was talking about.
That's
With the
fucking
too respectful of the
I
idea.
know what you mean. I know what you mean. Okay, so first, as a player, as a fellow gamer with you, you did really good not to say anything because I missed that cue completely. I seem to have like my English is not perfect, guys. So sometimes I really miss the point. I do, like it's happened twice. So just right there. So when if I was asking the detective to decrypt the thing, uncrypt the thing, but you seem in your head to have understood it differently, like I knew already. So you did well to let me go with it and have this exchange, because otherwise, I mean, it just would have been a glitch. Yeah, I would have said okay, and then I would have rewind, and then I would just do it again.
So I introduced into the fiction the idea that Yorn thinks he's clear-headed
yeah
on V20, but he actually isn't.
Yeah, but that
fresh.
honestly, I remember like on the Technique Consortium page, there was a series of video about that issue, like what technique to use.
Yeah.
And I think that the best technique is to just go with it. Say
yes, and
say yes, say yes. And Vincent Baker in the original Apocalypse world, say yes. Just don't do that. Just don't do the no. Just improv. Just go with the flow. Just modify it in your head and go with the flow, because sometimes there is a glitch in the fucking narration. There is a glitch in the machine. People don't understand each other. It goes fast, especially online though, because sometimes when I speak, you cannot speak, and I miss something.
Yeah,
do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the sound cuts out.
Yeah, the sound cuts out. So go with it. Just run with it and adjust yourself. And I think it's way more fluid. If you stop, me personally, I don't care. If you feel like stopping me, I will accept it. I don't mind. I make mistake all the time, especially in my second language. So I don't mind. But
it was a minor point, but I just want to talk about that very strong social pressure not to speak.
Yeah.
And like now, if you had said something like Cadmus went into the temple of the Unified and killed people, I'd be like, oh, no, that didn't happen. You're remembering wrong.
No.
Right? No, so there's the whole idea of being true to the fiction, right? We've got a lot of details stretched out over a year, but it's only 8 sessions, right? So all these details are separated in space and time. So as a procedural thing, I think we really should have been doing a recap at the beginning of every session, but
that's
not doing it as reflected in the time. But
by the way, I just want to give ourselves a hand of applause we've been doing this thing over a year,
Hmm.
playing every 2 months. Sometimes like this is a thing I will give to the Veil on and to the Power by the Apocalypse. We play every 2 months. I read many games and many other books in my life, and I don't really need to study the game. I just see the character sheet and the rules are on it, and I'm like, boom, I can go.
You can play.
Yeah, I can play. So that's a really powerful design thing. Yeah, like I mean, the sense of like it's we can actually do it over a
Which doesn't
year.
mean we do it well or
No, of
smoothly
course,
or
of
with
course.
art.
Yeah, yeah. You're right. You're right. You're right. Like
Right.
last session, I forgot my emotion twice. And as a GM, you don't have your reflex warmed up. You know, your so
Yeah.
of course. But
But
I mean, if you let's talk about Shadowrun. Like, imagine Shadowrun like every 2 months. Forget about it. With my New York accent, forget about it. Forget about it.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
that would be a lot of one moment, please.
Hey, whoa. Yeah, of course.
So,
Yeah.
so this idea that I kind of like to talk with all being there is this metaphor that occurred to me while talking with Ivan, right? To get away from this too respectful, you know, be so careful that to not make mistakes that you don't let yourself play. That's where I was today, and you were there as a player, I think, in the session with Cadmus's death, and you were there as an MC in our second session. It may have been the third. I can't remember now, but I think it was the second session. Um, just that sense of I want to put things in there, in my role as the MC player, and I either don't know how, or I feel like it's the wrong time, or I don't want to interrupt, or whatever. Right? There's this I can't play feeling, which we didn't like, which comes from us. So, from the MC point of view, it suddenly occurred to me that what if events in the game, like the MC controls the setting? What if we could picture this like Ender in Ender's Game, right? That, the direction is down, right? I don't know if you've read Ender's Game, but
yeah.
the idea is of gravity, right? So rather than like dealing a bunch of cards across the table and hoping people use them, right? Rather than making suggestions and hoping they don't, swipe right or swipe left or whatever, to say, no, I'm not going to take that cue. No, I'm not going to get hooked by that. No, I'm not interested in that plot thread or that character or whatever. Instead, treat the world like we are going in this direction. We are being pulled down by gravity. If you don't want to go there, you have to do something. What do you think about that idea as a way to express the position where the MC needs to be?
That's a good question. I'm gonna think about it as I go to the bathroom. Keep going.
Well, in that case,
What do you think about it?
Yeah,
You're not going to the bathroom, old man.
How do you know? The camera only goes to here. You have no idea what I'm doing. You know what I'm wearing. That's too bad because she won't hear my brilliant response, but it really doesn't matter because I didn't make it up. I remember at some point it was probably after a session of the Veil, and it might have been after I think it was after my one of my sessions emceeing where I was really having that same kind of like, how do I do this? Like, it just felt like I should be able to do something here and I can't do it. And I went back.
Your first and second sessions, I think.
Yeah. And I went back and I figured, let me read Apocalypse World again. And I don't own a physical copy, but I got, the bundle of holding they had a while ago. So I got a whole bunch of junk in the Apocalypse World, and I think I actually probably bought the PDF before. I probably have 2 or 3 copies of it, the damn thing. But I remember reading it again and realizing that Baker, really, in that original game, it's really heavy-handed. The MC is, or GM is, whatever you call it in that game, they're really just beating the tar out of the players or the characters all the time. And it is, you know, when you said the gravity, it made sense because there is that real strong, you know, you don't, he says you don't plot anything, you don't plan anything, you don't pre-plan this story,
Right.
but the world itself is
I think you
very
put it in
dynamic.
motion, though. Right.
Yeah, yeah, you put it in motion, but that world is incredibly um, dynamic and insistent and in your face, and the
And
the
no plot,
yeah,
no story. But like to translate it to the veil, right? The game tells you up front, there's a problem,
right,
right? You have to define what the veil is, and the veil is going to be involved.
right,
That's a direction. So as the MC, are you not then obligated, or are you not then supposed to be not pushing and not
right.
pulling, but let's say insisting or being gravity, right? This is where we're going. Are you changing it? No? Okay. We're
Right.
still going there.
Yeah, I thought about that during my 3 sessions, you know, too, and I kind of I could have planned, not planned, that's the wrong word, but I kind of started to see this timeline of where my idea of where, you know, what was happening with the veil itself, you know, where that could go, and um, and once again, it wasn't like a plot, like here's the story that shall happen, you know, that'll unfold, and but um, I could see how that was, you know, it was almost disappointing is the wrong word, but just to kind of say, okay, well, my sessions are over now, and now I'm not sure what that, you know, that direction is anymore. Um, you know, I can
Well,
see how it'd be easy to insert that gravity.
or
Go ahead, you were saying?
insist on it, I guess.
Yeah,
Um, so let's recap. Um,
Well, you guys talk about a gravity. What's the difference would it be between gravity and railroading into a plot? Because
ah,
oh,
gravity,
good question.
and there is, but it's but I think I think I feel it like gravity would be we go there. How we don't know, but we go there. You know that would be a good difference. Now that's why I asked that question to Tess in the conversation. I said, "What do you think we should do? How should we go about Cadmus not dying in vain?" I asked that question twice in the conversation, and Tess remembered me what Cadmus was trying to do. He wanted to expose his condition to the
right.
world, to society, and so
He
we
gave
know.
up on being able to affect the veil. He didn't
Yeah,
have the time,
yeah,
so he chose
yeah,
to take out the people who were working against the veil,
yeah,
right? Because they were doing something that the veil was capitalizing on.
yeah. So there was some kind of a revolution, and so let's make everybody aware and go all in into war. And in my head as a player, I said, you know what? That's a nice anti-climax because it's like, okay, so instead of winning at the end, we open up a fucking war and we end up on it, and then we can imagine how it's gonna end, right? So
Yeah.
it's an interesting story right there, if possible. And now the idea was that so since I asked Tess was like, I don't know. So I said to me, you know what? You gave me now the information. This is what Cadmus wanted. I will I will do it. I will utilize my resources. My resources is my community, my religious people. I have this contact. I have this platform I already put in place. Let's make him a martyr.
Right.
And it's like it's dirty. It's dark. It's trash. I utilize Cadmus' name to make him a martyr in my own religion. He was not. He was atheist. He didn't care about that religion at all. Now I'm making him a martyr.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a dark character. It's a character that is so deep in his dogma. But I mentioned that to you in the beginning. And I'm gonna play that contrast. He's gonna play the good guy all the time. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to hurt you. But it's gonna be so hard at the same time that it's gonna look, you know what I'm saying? Like it feels weird. This guy feels weird. This guy is it feel to test like he's an egotistical megalomaniac guy, narcissist at the same time kind of thing, and it's not. It's kind of true. It's kind of true, but I mean, cyberpunk being what it is.
Right. We have the room to bring in dark characters. Of course, any game I'm involved in tends to go in that direction anyway.
No, no.
Also, there is a thing that I realized. I was listening to you guys, like all these issues that we go through somehow right now. I think there is something to be said about the theme we chose in the social contract. We chose these existential questions about what it is to be human, what's the difference between AI and the mind and the soul and all that. And there's an apparatus, there's a religious guy, and there is a dying man. I mean, we went all in, into that stuff. So of course it's gonna be radical in the distinctions because I feel this because and I feel it makes all the sense in the world why Cadmus didn't agree with Yorn and Yorn's not agreeing with Tess, even though they were friends. Because Tess is not becoming human, but Yorn is not recognized that humanity. I mean, since the beginning, it was like, yo, you're a nice girl, you're a chick, you're a cool girl, but you're synthetic. I'm gonna help you out because this is the slum.
We're all part of the unified.
Yeah, probably unified, but I mean, you're not human. There's no.
That's one of those things. I think we discovered some neat things that can happen with this, and then some other things that can be more problematic. Is when I first looked at the Veil and looked at these playbooks, the first thing that jumped out at me is like, how could any of these characters work together? Because any single playbook is a protagonist or at least a main character of a story, and you can't imagine two of them being in the same story because they're so upfront and so dogmatic and we found, at least in the midpoint of our game, that like we managed to make these three characters work together, which was really kind of interesting. How do you get these three really, solo artists kind of like harmonizing, for lack of a better word? But then you could see just how easily that can go right back to them completely just, be it bumping heads against each other, because somebody like Tess and somebody like Yorn are just so diametrically opposed. Doesn't even begin to.
Well, at the same time, Yorn and Tess, they were good friends.
Right.
I mean, they liked each other. But the thing is that the more human you become, Tess, the less you agree with Yorn.
Right.
And it makes sense because Yorn is like, hey, believe in something that you don't even understand. Yeah, like Tess is still a robot. Like, nah, man, it doesn't make sense. And this is why you ask those questions. I felt like because the question you ask is really Cartesian.
Right.
It was super Cartesian. Like, yeah, but you don't know that thing, but you believe in it. And I'm like, yeah, this faith, and like, doesn't make sense. Doesn't compute. And I'm like, because you're a robot. It's like I was just being so human.
Right. Yeah, I probably missed some of it as you guys were talking about it because I started to look in Apocalypse World for the part that I looked at before, because I don't know if you missed that part, but like, when I was having so many problems as an MC during my sessions, I went back and looked at Apocalypse World and figured out like what was the original intention, like and there's a lot of stuff that Baker says in here where you're asking about what's the difference between railroading and this gravity thing. But Baker talks a lot about don't prep results, and this is not the part I'm looking for. But he says in this one section here on page 118, he says prep circumstances, prep pressures, developing NPC actions, but not future scenes that you intend to lead the PCs into. And to me, that's the big difference between railroading and this gravity. Is like
It's a
Right.
good. That's
Don't
a
prep.
really good passage.
Yeah, and he's got that's not there's better lines in this book on that, but he talks about countdown clocks and things that are going to happen, unless the PCs do something. And you think of like Apocalypse World or PBTA games, oh man, it's really collaborative and everything, but the way it's written, the prescription is here. Okay, don't plan what's going to happen, but that doesn't mean that the world isn't moving along like a freight train.
So as a counterpoint to that, we have Ron Edwards' description of triggers.
Right.
Right. Or sometimes he uses the term kickers in other games, but the you don't plan much of anything at all except for a consequence that can be triggered in a particular kind of relationship. Right? So you could play through the entire session and not set off the trigger, not trigger the trigger, right? The consequence doesn't happen. And okay, but it's in there as a way to establish the uniqueness of that place. And I think that helps the game master in their improvisation. Like, what kind of place is this? What kind of town? What kind of organization? What kind of group of characters? What kind of personality is this? And you have this concept in your head of, when pushed, what comes out. You don't think about having them be pushed. You just think about, do I understand this situation to the point where if the characters really start to exert their ability to affect the world, what's the consequence? And I think that's a similar idea, which is even one more step removed from the idea of plotting, because it's really difficult for a lot of people to see the difference between creating an NPC, giving them abilities and resources, figuring out an agenda that goes with all of that, without then saying, and so on Wednesday, the characters will encounter X. Right? When you really have to stop a step before that and say, this is what the character wants to do. Now, in some games, you could roll to see if they did it or not. In this game, you're left with deciding whether they do it or not, or seeing if you can find a perspective where a character role influences what they're doing, which is if we're talking about, the Veil's plans and stuff, that's not going to happen. You're just going to have to decide, well, the Veil has advanced their agenda by this much by this time. That's the new scene. Put
What's missing?
Put the players in a scene.
I think that what's missing right now in the storyline is a big move by the Veil. Just something that just boom.
Oh, it happened today. Did you see it?
Here's what happened. And then, oh shit, it's kind of like brings the attention from the humans, all the NPCs, like the detective. Imagine a move. Imagine the Veil making a move so important that the detective becomes aware of what's going on. That Yorn's move about exposing the whole thing is not relevant anymore. That was a cataclysm. That's what the Veil did, something so big. Now, for the last session, and you know what could be interesting for the last session? Having more than 2 hours. Just to make sure that we finish it, like, take the time to finish it. Like, making time for a 4-hour thing, I think that would be perfect. But having a big move,
today the Veil did make a big move.
I didn't notice. Which one.
Well, let's see if you noticed.
Yes, it did.
Let's think about Tessa's experience today.
Oh, I remember a move. I remember that Tess had like some kind of a hallucination, hearing some voices. That's the Veil, right? So, but you see, the move was so subtle. As a player, I don't even recall. I cannot even.
Well, let's expose it. Why not? There's no reason not to.
No. There's no reason. Just go ahead.
Okay, so just the way the apartment is set up, Just a second.
No problem. No problem.
Yeah, that's kind of like I play with Eloy, and he's in Puerto Rico, so they have the coquitos, frogs. You can hear it all the time. Have you ever heard that? We play those games, and at first when I started playing with it, we were playing Star Trek, and I thought it sounded like the bridge noise, the beep beep beep. Then I realized it's the frogs. So I don't hear the frogs anymore when I play with Eloy. And so now when I talk to Anthony or I play with Anthony, I don't hear the dogs anymore. I'm so used to those sounds.
Yeah, the dogs. Yeah, I don't mind at all. I don't recognize the noise. But for him though, and his neighbor, that would be something else. I don't know what the situation is.
In fact, when I play with Eloy now, and the frogs are strong. But now we're back. We filled the time.
Oh yeah, dogs, not frogs. Okay, so here's the thing.
Definitely not.
The way the apartment is set up, it tells the owner who's at the door, that kind of stuff, right? And Cadmus being Cadmus, working for a security company, it's set up with some interesting perks. So you're able to get a body scan of these cybered individuals. Of course, the Veil knows they're out there, right?
Right.
And at that moment, she gets a vision of Cadmus. At that moment, she hears Cadmus's voice, right? Separating the two of you.
Right.
And then later, when her curiosity activated,
Yeah.
she starts, she lifts the veil and she starts to interact with the veil directly and fails. What happens? No, I'm actually asking you what happens. I'm not telling you.
I have no idea. I didn't notice that at all.
It's like a tearful reunion between mom and mother and daughter. It's a mother and child reunion.
Right. She exposed all of you, called you her daughter.
Right.
Right. Her prodigal daughter.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that I remember. Prodigal daughter. Yeah.
What have they done to you? And what's that all about?
Yeah.
The Veil doesn't care about people. The Veil doesn't care who's there to see these things happening.
But she cares about Tess. She fucking cares about Tess. That's mean. Oh, that's so good. That's a great move, but I didn't see it. It was too subtle. For me. I don't know about you, Ivan.
I saw it, but I have to be honest that I went into the session already more in that mindset because I got to just the events of session 7 already got Tessa's mindset into she's questioning not whose side she's on, but she realizes she cannot identify. She wants to take her place amongst people, or because she's felt marginalized even by her best friends, by Yorn and Cadmus. But so she already kind of went in with that mindset. And so that was to me, that was a very satisfying moment, even though it was a failed role, to have all of a sudden this welcome, for lack of a better word, or this identification, as brief as it was by the Veil.
Oh man, guys, this is gonna end up with a PvP. My character is gonna kill Tess with a crisis of fate. That is exact. No, I mean, it's written in the sky. I mean, look, Tess, it doesn't feel welcome in the human world. She feels that the humans are just a bunch of egotistical piece of crap shit. And then she's like the prodigal daughter of the Veil. I will try to stop the Veil. The Veil will convince Tess to stop that. And then Tess will be, yeah, fucking you religious prick. And then she's going to come to kill me. I'm going to have to kill her to survive. if the dice are in my favor, I have my crisis of fate as the climax. It is written in the sky.
Or we spend
Or-
another session in the apartment.
It's not gonna happen. I'm already gone. I am already gone. Unless he stays in the apartment. Oh
But
man.
we can't prep that outcome. As Aloy reminded me in the comments, you prep situations, not outcomes.
Yeah. We don't know yet. We don't know yet.
No,
But
but that did.
oh man, that would be so fucking good. That would be so cyberpunk. Like we end up killing each other, like big time, and then it ends up being this hopeless story with no great resolution. Yeah, man. Yeah,
It sounds satisfying.
it sounds really.
Yeah, I'm all about
satisfying.
no hope.
Yeah, it sounds this ending I just foreshadowed.
It sounds
that's
like
one
you're
of the-
plotting an ending, young man.
No, I'm not. I'm not. Me personally, I am. I have nothing against tests. I will utilize tests to my own benefits till the end. I have no problem with that.
That does bring up a really salient point for me that I've noticed in
Yeah.
in this game and this type of game. I think, but I think we run into it in this game more than once. Is it becomes very easy because of the level of narrative control that you can get at times. Then it becomes very easy to kind of envision and plot or think as an individual player, wouldn't it be really cool if this was the outcome?
Yeah. Especially
and-
right now, because we said it's gonna end in 9 sessions, so we know that we have like a 3 hour left, 3 to 4 hour max left. I do stress the importance of a long, at least an open-ended session, not something like that, because the last 2 sessions, it's bad for Anthony, because last 2 sessions I said I have to go, so it's kind of
Well, how long do you think it's going to take for Tess to kill Yorn? It's got to be like 5 minutes.
Oh man, it's not gonna be long, man. I'm gonna unless I run. I have legs. I have augmented legs. I can run for days.
Yeah, but one of those, man, it's held together with duct tape. But
The thing is that when I fail a roll involving the legs, you can utilize the the glitch. Yeah.
But my point with that like plotting the outcome thing is it's very easy not only to start to see like with a story like this. I thought myself, like, wouldn't it be kind of cool if this happened or that happened? It's easy to all of a sudden have conflicting desires or ideas of what that outcome might be. And so sometimes
we did, right? The
Right.
death of Cadmus versus the not death of Cadmus. That was
right.
all that.
I remember that.
And-
Next session, another thing that is important is to write belief. I think I'm going to erase all my beliefs and I'm going to write new ones just to reinforce that last session thing. I'm going to keep the my calling, religion calling is important, but the 2 other ones, I think I'm going to write something completely new that is specific to the ending I'm striving for. And I think you should do the same, Ivan, as well. So you have a clear intention toward the story in the belief. That way, everything's gonna fall into place. The game's gonna speak for itself. I think so. I'm not sure. What do you guys think?
Yes.
Yeah.
It has to come from the beliefs. It has to come from the characters. In my opinion, right? You need to be pushing for those things, which is why I don't like the word belief. We're back to that again. It has to be goal in order to get the kind of action that that the experience point part of it seems to be demanding, and
But at the same time, if you look, my character, I have a belief that is not a goal. My calling is my only meaningful purpose in this world. This is a belief. It's not a goal. And so it's the one that never been erased since the beginning. The 2 other ones are way more goal oriented, and you know, they can be resolved. But the first one, which is a real belief in the sense of the English language,
Right.
is not solvable. My calling is my only meaningful purpose in this world. The only way I can solve that is die on the cross like the Christ.
No,
And
you can find another belief. You can find, right, like
yeah,
get
you're
married,
right. You're
have
right. I
kids.
can, let's say, for example, stop believing in my faith, for example. Yeah, you're right. But it's the only one that deserves the name belief in the sense of the English language. Because I understood what you mean. Because goal in the book, in the Veil book, they don't make a distinction between belief and goal in the same way that they do in Burning Wheel, for example. This is why I came from that formulation, and it it uh, that's another thing. You know, I need to think about that. You know, after we play last session, maybe afterward. Personally, the I played that game. We didn't play a lot. We played every month, every 2 months sometimes. So, but a lot of time I look at my sheet and I feel like there's no purpose changing the belief on it. A lot of time I felt that way. But when I play Burning Wheel, I have to change these beliefs every game because I receive, you know, like rewards for them. So the story moves. You know, the wheel turn faster. In this game, sometimes I feel like there's no reason to change them. They don't. I don't even like we played 9 sessions. Even with the 9 session social contract, I don't even care about the advancement in this game. And I think 9 session is a legit amount of time, and I should care more about the beliefs and the reward system and getting advancement. I'm not sure. What do you guys think about that? Honestly, sometimes I feel like tonight I didn't get my points, and I don't care. It's not gonna change anything. And I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I really don't care. Honestly,
Well,
because of the structure of the design mechanism.
the only thing that has me caring about my rewards, or the reward mechanism, is the apparatus doesn't start out with all the emotions unlocked. You literally have to. So
That's
I just
true.
spend I
Yeah.
just spend my XP on that. That's what I've done. I still have two that I haven't, and so my goal was to get all six unlocked. Sounds like I'm
Mm,
playing. Sounds like I'm playing Pokemon. Got to get them all. But
yeah.
the idea is that like I wanted to get them all. I'm not going to be able to do that. Um, but they are. It is very true that they're you have to word them as goals. Like I was able to knock one of my beliefs off tonight was that I wanted to, um, uh, you know, find out about the unify and the whole. I find a side that I found out as much as I want to know. But the other beliefs that I have, they're still not really, they're goals. I just wasn't able to actually do anything about them, or wasn't able to bring them to completion, which can be frustrating. Um, but for the most part, there's still a part of them where they're really more motivations than they are really
Mhm,
measurably accomplishable goals.
mhm.
Um, and some of them, like we're going to make Cadmus's death mean something. There's not degrees of doing that.
Honest,
Either you've done it or you haven't done it, and that may
honestly,
take you sessions and sessions to do that,
yeah, yeah.
which is
And you
frustrating.
know what? What you just said just made me think. Instead of calling them belief, because for Anthony they feel like goals. Why we should call them motivations? Because motivation is a way better word that encompass both.
Yep.
You know, motivations would be and like a specific goal or something really abstract like my calling is the meaningful would be would fit better because we had this language thing that lasts a couple of sessions at the beginning, and honestly motivation is such a better word because what motivates you can be abstract or pragmatical, and it will fit, and it will be and we will be able to um, find elements in the game that make sense to be rewarded for anytime. I think motivation would be a way better word. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Eloy's making all these comments in the chat on the thing that he's talking about, like the I don't care thing. Looks like it'd be a sign you have well-defined characters and have a good story going. And sometimes beliefs are tools to give you direction. Seems like you got a good, you already had a direction. And for a lot of times, the only reason I care about that as a reward mechanic, like I said, is because my states weren't all unlocked. But mostly, I've looked at the beliefs I've written for my character, and they simply make sense based on my concept of that character. And so, like, I already know that's just, to me, it's just motivations. To then have to sit there and think, well, how much did I really push this one? Did I resolve this one? Sometimes, like, do you really want to resolve my character's my calling is the highest purpose of my life? That's not something you really resolve. That's who he is. That's
Yeah. And that, oh, man,
joke.
this is really important. What you just said right there is super, I would say, existential or philosophical, because here's my answer to Eloy. In Burning Wheel, the beliefs, they give you Arta at the end,
Right.
which is like bonus points on dice roll. Either you explode the dice, either you get a bonus die, either in this game, there is 3 belief, just like in Burning Wheel. They don't give you Arta, they give you XP to be spent somehow in the near future. And when you play a 9 game, or a 5 game, or 5er, a 9er, or a 3 gamer kind of thing, you don't give a shit. In Burning Wheel, you do. If you have a next session, you want that harder. In the Veil, you don't give a shit about the harder.
I'm going to provide a counterpoint, at least for my playbook and my path through the Veil.
Well,
XP was
the
life.
same level.
Yeah.
Right.
Go ahead.
The ability to be the character, to reach that end point, to all of that was very dependent on XP. So I really needed to have goals that fit the situation of the character. I mean, you can imagine someone playing the dying and just like, and especially if they don't sit down and say, we're going to play 9 sessions, so you're going to die somewhere before that, right? Because you have to die in play. Right. I mean, you could just be dying forever.
Yeah.
And
that's right.
And
that's right.
I can see that happening. So the combination of the situation, the playbook does have it built in that once your symptoms hit a certain level, they're going to kill you.
Right.
And you can play it where it's random, right? So, surprise, you're going to die in this session. Have fun. But the progress of the disease, if you're at all interested in that, or the expansion of your ability to get information, that's the core part of the playbook. If you're interested in those things, then you really want the XP, because you really have to unlock them, and that's difficult to do so. So I was motivated by the XP. I was frustrated by how to rationalize or how to organize something that's called a belief as an actionable statement that could be tested, or bring trouble, or could be resolved. As soon as the label belief was on it, I was having cognitive dissonance, and I knew it. I mean, I could just say, forget it's called a belief, just do the thing. But
right.
But it was hard every time.
Yeah, I know, and me is the same thing, because we can see the same thing about the way I approached it. I had this approach of the goal, so I have the same kind of cognitive dissonance. Because let's imagine there's 3 players, but they all agree and they all understand the idea of non-goal, just belief, just abstract, short sentences that we don't really have a clear, pragmatic way to apply the mechanic on them, and we just give the XP at the end, because it's just, there's a lot of people that play that way. I mean, this is why when I was on the Burning Wheel forum, when I first learned the game, there was posts and pages about the right way to write the belief, so you can find like mechanical justification and validation for the Artha. There was like pages and pages on that. So for me, that's why I came to the game with that bias, because I was like, geez, the game, they give you a page, like there's 1.5 pages about belief, like in the book, I think, like the way you give the award, the reward. So I'm like, fuck, man, it's gonna be loose, and it's gonna be anything goes down. This is why I came with these comments at the beginning, and so this is why I was stressing out the idea of like these uh, syntactic phrases, just like here's what I want to do, here's how and why. So two-parter thing, and create these long sentences where, since I want to do this, here's how I'm going to do it, or because this and that, this and that, and this is why the word belief is way a little bit too loose, I think. This is, and also this, they still in Burning Will they still call it belief, but they say you have like your philosophical belief, your belief about another character, and then your goal, your pragmatic goal. So they kind of like uh, uh, break it down in three categories of belief, kind of thing. And in Mouse Guard, it's part of the game. In Mars Guard, they say there's a goal, there's a thing there, there's a moral thing, and there's this thing. They break it down in Mouse Guard, right? So
Beliefs, instincts, and goals, Elira.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
That's one of the things I noticed, that it's possible that they could contribute to, like, sometimes we had a different opinion about beliefs or XP or whatnot. I'm not 100% sure. And I have to go back and look at the other playbooks. Is one of the things that jumped out to me is like not all playbooks are created equal when it comes to XP. Like how valuable is it? How essential is it?
Well, yeah.
Because for the apparatus, from my experience of getting the other states as a player, yes, I'd like to have all these states available. That's important. For the dying, well, they're in big trouble if they don't get XP. For the seeker, it's a little different, but the urgency to actually have your beliefs resolved because you're going to get XP, I think varies from character to character. And on a what was most satisfying mechanically for my character, very often it wasn't even the unlocking of these other states via XP. It was like the birth move, or those moments when I forget what the move is called, where you lift the veil, but there's the abyss stares back, which I haven't had a chance to do lately, but that move was very satisfying. And then there was just stuff about that happened in the fiction that had to do with my character's motivations as revealed by the beliefs, but had nothing to do with the mechanics at all. Those are much more rewarding in play than I need this. Whereas, another playbook, it might be really essential that I need XP to do blank or to whatever. So they're not all, depending on what playbook you play, you could end up with a very different perspective on all that.
Definitely different experience. Like, for example, me as a seeker, the old fun is the communion role at the beginning. I don't know what kind of session I'm gonna have. Depending on my communion role, I'm gonna have to seek for preaching or penance or judgment, or I'm gonna receive some cred, or I'm gonna have stupor. I'm gonna be high. Like I had to choose my stupor. I'm sorry. I had to choose my surplus. I have two choices from character creation. Either I'm high or I get money. The money I get is from the preaching. This is part of the way I created the character. So it didn't make sense that I received money now, because I didn't preach. I left. So I was already high from the narration. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna make sense, and I'm gonna keep the stupor. And so I'm high, and then, but I have a want, and the want, I was that's another thing. We were supposed to let the MC decide my wrong. We did last session, but we forgot. I forgot at least to let Anthony express it. So in some sense, I just went to preach. I said, you know what? I need to reinforce my preaching because it's part of my character. So I went to the most obvious one, and it made sense. I mean, he's a preacher. So now, so what I do is what is fun with the seeker is that the communion role dictate. It gives you like a surprising. You don't know what kind of session you're gonna have because something's gonna be brought up by the GM depending on your role. That is really fun. You know, that's the only part that I like with the seeker. Where I mean, I can recognize the fun of the seeker. So that's good design. There is something there that is different from all the other playbook, and it contributes to the fun.
Oh, one thing I've been missing about the play of the seeker is the insight. You know, it's
I know.
right there in the center.
Understand. I don't understand it. I just don't understand.
So you don't understand it, so that's why we're not seeing it. Oh, okay.
Probably, Anthony, because I read it. I'm supposed to have enlightenment points.
Enlightenment and insight are the same thing. It's an editing mistake.
It's I think so because it's like I'm supposed to have enlightenment points that I receive.
Right, so but the only thing it tells you how to earn is the insight points. And if they're a resource to use to do specific things as the seeker, like understand a situation. So that's what I was waiting for with Jorn. When is he going to meditate, or when is he going to? And I did. When is this going to happen?
So I think today my meditation that I did should receive an enlightenment point.
I agree. So we'll take care of that at the beginning of the next session.
Yeah, and that enlightenment point is added to the communion role. That way, I managed to express my faith. Yeah, I think that is what we miss with it. But I mean, I read it. I talked to Ivan as well about that when Ivan was the MC. I'm like, I don't get it, and because I think insight and enlightenment should be the same thing. I think it's an editing mistake. You're right, Anthony, because it's about like because you get punished as a seeker, you're punished whenever your 3 fate items are not met. Whenever you go against your fate items, you get punished on your fate. So when you do your communion role, you get a problem about that. Now, whenever you do the opposite, whenever you reinforce your fate, you should get enlightenment points. And I did it so many often, but we never really. So it's a cycle. It's a reward cycle that we just we forgot about. But it's not. I don't care. I don't care because it was my responsibility to understand it. I tried. I didn't, and I just decided to roll the communion plane.
Oh, it's what informs us about this strong dogmatic nature of Jorn, right? Like he's actually not looking for enlightenment. He's not looking for inspiration. He's not looking for insight. He has all the answers. This is how I've been reacting to Jorn from the beginning. Yeah. How is he a seeker? Well, he's a seeker at the end of things. And
the what he's seeking, because the way I was seeing it is that, let's say, I could have been, because when you ask the question, I could have been cheesy about it and really predictable. Like,
we don't want that. That's terrible.
There we go. So I could have been like, okay, so he has anger management issue. He killed someone in the past, so that's why, and it's easy. So fuck it. So I said, it's too classical. It's too common sense. So I said, no, it's not that. He got bullied. He was in the slums, and so he ran away all his life. He was scared all his life. So he find guidance in this fate. Something basic, something neutral, something not too cliche. I want to get out of the cliche. That's all. And even though cliche are powerful for storytelling, and they are part of real life.
They're also a crutch.
Yeah, they are part of real life experience. I mean, shit happens to people, and this is the reason why it's cliche. So I didn't want it to go in that direction at all. I just wanted to be like this common guy. He's just dogmatic, and also maybe just he likes the drug, right? He likes the he just like the drug, so it's some kind of an addiction thing as well. And he's not particularly smart. He just like the sense of community, finding some reason there. And so the question and I appreciated when you asked the question, like, just tell me why he's peaceful. I appreciated that because for me it made it sense, but it was not necessarily obvious from my narration, right? So asking it as an MC was a good way to reinforce that.
Yeah,
Because
that part of the session was my favorite part.
Yeah.
That's the part where I felt like we were really playing, like I was managing to find my way into the game.
Yeah, of course. And I felt like it was my duty as a player to give you some good answer there, something that is meaningful, something that is coherent. Because the dude is peaceful all the time. Like, how the fuck are you not mad now? Right? And it's important to try to make some sense out of that. And for me, I was visiting it as a player. I was like, you know what? He been bullied a little bit. He was in a hardcore neighborhood. Not much guidance from the parents. Poor background. Poor lifestyle. He was tired of running away, so he find like courage and in that religion. He find a meaningful place to express himself and stop being afraid, stop being anxious and stuff like that. So it justified all the implants he had. At the same time, I was like, wow, thank you. That's good. Yeah. And it's so basic. I mean, right? It's because it's easy to fall into the because the thing is that Hollywood, the Netflix now, like all this we have these archetypes. They are so strong, so classic, so cliche now. It's just it's easy. It's easy to fall back into what we know. It becomes it becomes a story about something that we've seen before.
Yeah.
And in the RPG, it's a storytelling game. How can we go beyond that? Sometimes being simple, being common sense, being so normal. It's nasty to be so normal. I don't know. There's a new movie from Lars von Trier. You guys know Lars von Trier? He did a movie called The House That Jack Built. I don't know if you guys seen it. It just came out with Matt Dillon and Uma Thurman. It's about a psychopath killer. The dude is so normal. He is so basic that you're watching the movie and you feel bad. I was watching it today, just this morning before the game. The guy is so basic. He goes through this process of becoming a serial killer, and you're like, how the fuck did that happen? There's no good reason for it. You don't see where it comes from. He's not like the psycho with the mother. The mother is you don't see the cliche. You're like, whoa, and it's horrifying. Horrifying for that reason. So I don't know. I think I went for that, and it can be a problem for somehow. I remember the first time I played Wrath. I played Wrath with the first time with Sébastien from Quebec City, and I gave him my character speech, and he's like, "Dude, the dude is way too boring. You need a reason why." He's like in that spot, and I'm like, "Well, I'm gonna fall into a cliche." So he was right. Like, he was right that I needed a reason. It's to be that boring, and I find one, and it was a cliche one somehow. But that's in Wrath, you need reasons to behold in the spirit world kind of thing. You need a reason, otherwise it doesn't make sense. So that's what happened in that situation. Like, how is Wrath gonna be frightening and hardcore like it was? Well, you need something super cliche but super symbolic, like hardcore stuff from World of Darkness, like you kill I think my story was like I killed a child. My son died because I didn't watch him well when he was learning the bike and got cut up by a car. So when I die, I get stuck in that moment, kind of thing. Wrath. Wrath the Oblivion is nasty, right? So there's something like that. So
it's a good opportunity to explore.
There you go. There you go. But it's super cliche. It's super cliche for a reason why. It's like you failed at something meaningful in your life, and therefore you're stuck. But it was missing. It was missing in my character creation for him as a GM. So for now, in the game, I feel we have the same thing. Like there is a guy there. You guys want to know why he's so peaceful. You want a cliche reason why? Like, did he kill somebody? Does he have anger issues? Was he beaten as a child, or I don't know? Maybe that's why. I don't know.
I think the characters in the scene would want that, but for me as the MC, when I asked, it was partly because I'm reaching out for things in the game to try and feel better about the session.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, the thing that really resonated with me most strongly about all of these PBTA games has been ask questions. Right? Ask questions. Like, stop delivering statements. I don't have to describe anything. We're in the same scene, right? And I tend to default as a game master. I like to feed out some description and see if people are going to bite on it, and if not, after a little bit of silence, feed out some more description, and sooner or later there's going to be some traction where we start role playing or communicating or acting or rolling dice or something, right? But that's not this game. So I thought, well, I get to ask questions, not in my subliminal way by saying, look, here's the setting that your character's in. Show us that character, right? So I have to actually ask. So I asked, I want to know what is in your head right now as the player of this character, the justification for what you're telling me. I don't want to just hear, well, he's peaceful because he's stoned, or she's angry because she's been told over and over and over again that she's artificial, or the promise or the violation of trust between them. Like, I'm trying to keep it a secret that I'm artificial, right? Please respect that wish, right? The violation of trust there. I want to know where it's all coming from. I want to know that and that's what that we understand each other, that we're going in the same direction.
Yeah, that's a good question, Ivan. So I want to answer that. I want to answer that for you as a player, because personally, I the reason why I'm as a player keep on poke you with that, right? Because I kind of harass you. Like, he's a robot. He's not real. The reason why I do that is to trigger something, because the question asking is I cannot, as a player, I cannot grab it. I don't know what to do with it. It's just like I want Tess to do something. I want Tess to actually fucking do something. So I'm like, I'm gonna just, I know your weak point now because you've mentioned in the past. I'm like,
right.
So I kind of just decided for my character to be like, you know what? He's never gonna recognize, because I never did it. I never recognized you as a human. I always recognized you as a robot. At the beginning, I was like, yeah, well, I never told her, but it's kind of obvious. And then you were at the beginning of it, so me and Cadmus there was a triangle at the beginning, but now it's no more. So it's like, and then you did the massacre, and then you reset it in front of me, plugged. So I'm not gonna be lying to myself, neither to you. So it's just like, I'm just gonna be really, really frank about it, right? So the whole idea was, And then I realized every time I get the conversation with you, it's always about question asking, and I wonder why, I wonder this, I wonder that. So I said, I'm just gonna poke the guy. He's gonna do something crazy, and it's gonna be interesting. So he's gonna throw me out the window. That's gonna be fun. Let's see what's gonna happen, and let's see how the GM is gonna manage that. Are you gonna throw me by the window? Never. You're not gonna do that. I dare you. You're never gonna do that. So I'm gonna poke you till the end until you do something, and then that's all I did. Basically, well, as a player, that was my mentality, because the game is not even close to kill me. So
Right, right. No.
you right? Do you understand what I'm saying? This is where I come from, and I'm just being honest with that. The game is not lethal,
Well,
and
that's something we talked about before. I guess
yeah,
what you were absent. We talked about
yeah,
the lack of lethality that we're sensing.
yeah,
Likely resides with the MC, right? Not bringing it.
Right.
It's not there because we didn't bring it. The storm was the most damaging thing. We've had lots of risk to life and limb, right? The X series assassins
yeah.
and the you got into a potential gang fight in an alley somewhere with
Yeah.
some drug dealers and things like that. The potential for violence has been there, but not actually there. Whereas if we're talking about dangerous sprawl streets, it's totally within the MC's rights, I believe,
Yeah.
to you're walking down the street and okay, you're now encircled by a gang who,
Right.
like cold cocking Cadmus in the bar, right, in the Neo, right? It's like
And,
bam, okay,
and
you've
you,
taken harm, you're surrounded by chain wielding maniacs with chainsaw arms.
Right.
Rusty Chesson from the dumpster.
But you know, one
Yeah, go
one
ahead.
thing before we go too far down this rabbit hole, because something was occurring to me as you guys were talking, and
Oh.
I was waiting for the right moment. And then she kind of provided it. That point where you weren't getting enough from Tess, and she was, I mean, and she asked questions specifically, like one of the things I've noticed recently, and it's been interesting because we've been playing in this other game. And so Anthony and I have been playing Eloy's Delta Green game. We've been doing something very interesting in that game because we're playing it play by post. And I played and play by post games before, but the interesting thing we're doing in this game is we made this decision to um, post not only what the characters are doing and not only what the characters are saying, and there's different fonts for that, but we're also posting what they're thinking, which is really interesting because that's not something I normally do, and that's not something that's normally a comfortable mode of play for me because it's just not what it's generally not my preferred method of playing. So yeah, this is why my character is doing that. So very often, in the game that's happening in my head, not the game, but the experience in my head as Tess, in the real life, Tess wouldn't walk around and say, "Well, Jorn, the reason I'm asking you these questions is this, or the reason I'm behaving so impassively, or the reason I always pull out my gun is that." Now, so we have these moments where, and Jorn's not walking around saying, "And the reason that I'm always so calm during this is because of that." Anthony had to ask you that, and that gives the MC more information
Yeah.
there. Now, the interesting experience that we've been having in this other game is that we are, because it's play by post, we can have several different conversations at once, and we're posting what the character is thinking. And I think the way we're getting around that or justifying that in our heads is these characters are all investigators and one's a priest, and they're all very used to reading people, and they all have pretty high levels of that skill. So they might not know exactly what the other guy in the room is thinking, but they can kind of see, okay, I think I know where this guy's head is at. That's
When we first started playing the Veil, this was one of the decisions that I made, was that I'm going to tell you or talk about the physical cues you're getting about the behavior of my character. And I, watching them again to get ready for these sessions, was kind of funny is that there's a whole lot of other detail that got sacrificed as a result, things I would normally say.
Right.
You know, like reinforcing other aspects of who the character is. So there was this trade-off going on of like, I'm giving you motivations with my dialogue. My dialogue contains my action, but what else was absent that would normally be there? It's kind of, I find it's kind of interesting. So it seems like this game demands, or this mode of play demands, the two voices, right? The statement of action, the clear statement of action that the MC can recognize as a request for a move, right? The all the cues that anybody in the room should be getting, and then the role play. And
So first person and third person discourse and standpoint. In the same narration. Both
if we want to be sure that everybody's
on the same page,
getting everything, that things aren't too subtle or
yeah, definitely. This is something that seems to be there since the beginning. We need to do both in one intervention, in one moment, in one narration. Like my character thinks about this and this and this and that. I do this and this and that, or the other way around. I do this and this and that because this and this and that in third person.
That is in writing. That is, it's pretty easy to do. It's actually kind of fun to write your post and think, and because it's real time. So everybody can see if you're posting, and they can see when you're done. You put a little plus sign that I'm done posting now, and they can see it's you because it's your font color and all that sort of stuff. And it doesn't seem cumbersome, but to me, in talking role playing, real time, talking across the table, it seems incredibly cumbersome to say, okay, well, Tess is feeling this way, and this is why she's asking you these questions. And it's a mouthful. It's an awful lot of stuff to say.
Yeah.
And then Tess does this, and then I say blah 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 blah. It's like a lot of
definitely. And so I this is where I as a player personally, what I did, especially tonight, what I feel is like, and I think the PBTA games are good for that, is that you get to have a real exchange with the other players, even the MC. It's like it's a real exchange. It's like, hey, I'm gonna utilize my power right now as a narrator to challenge you, to push you, to make you think about something, to make you talk, or to make you, or to annoy you, to make you, like, to make sure that, to avoid being caught up in what you're trying to do. And then it's a real situation that can happen in these games. And I was not trying to do that tonight, but that's what happened. And I realized the power of the players in the PBTA game, and it's good. It's really good. It's good. I think it's a good. The PBTA games are a really good game to actually teach players what is collaboration, what is storytelling from a player perspective. Because otherwise you think it's all on the GM, but it's not. And the PBTA, what they do is that they allow the player to express themselves, and it creates these situations where, oh my god, like, because honestly, like, right now, like, Yorn is really powerful. He has a really good situation going on. You can do a lot of things. It's gonna influence the story. Now, it's a good thing, but the thing is that, not really. If you're good with the PBTA games, like Tess or Anthony as the NC, you can fuck it all up. You can just utilize the game and stop it and block it. It's not so hard, but it demands to do stuff that is counterintuitive to some of the traditional games. Just like you mentioned earlier, like it's inflict harm, or Anthony earlier said like I call that cheap moves. He called that cheap moves. He said, yeah, I don't want to be cheap. I don't want to take away from you. I don't want to inflict harm. But the game works that way. If there is a player, he's on fire that night. The dice are rolling this way. He's utilizing the moves in such a way that he's fucking creating the whole story by himself. Just stop the guy. Stop him. Inflict harm. Just stop the damn thing. Say yes all the time, but just yes, but, and then just go beyond that, or just inflict so much problems. Like you receive an email now, the email sends you that way, and like, oh shit, it's a GM move. For example, I said I received an email from Victor Z. Victor Z is gonna give me Akhenaten, no problem. Now the day after, I go to Akhenaten's place. I receive an email from Akhenaten saying, no, you don't go there. You go there. I'm like, oh shit. You see, it's out of nowhere. There's no role needed. But for Anthony, this is cheap. You see, because it's the natural way to play. But Power by the Apocalypse demands that. Otherwise, the player rules everything. Right?
Yeah, and that's part of the. I can see it's part of its strength, but it's part of its weakness. Is if it's handled maturely,
it's great.
It can probably go really good.
Yeah,
I can see how it could easily devolve into an ugly power struggle.
Of course. But personally, when I play, Holy Trinity, find the right people. So I mean, we're not stupid. We're not immature. We play. We trying to stay in the rules. Like I think we managed to have a good time. But obviously, if you're a 16-year-old and you're stupid and you're young and you wanna power struggle with everything, it's gonna be a game that can become frustrating for sure. Or power gamers. Some power gamers, when even if they are 45, they have that the power.
That young?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You know what I mean? I mean, I've seen these guys like 45-year-old like sore losers. I've seen them in conventions. I mean, I know it's possible, but I don't live in that reality myself. I try to have a good time, so I want to discuss. I want to talk.
Yeah,
talk to the players. That's exactly what we do. We talk to the players right now.
Yeah. The social side of things is always there's no game that can fix that.
Nah.
Right. If someone brings a social issue into the group, or if someone's not willing to learn the game, or if someone is not willing to assess their reaction to a game, and like find that point of compromise where fun can be had, then there's no game on earth that can fix that. That's the social side. That's the relationship skill. Do I want to be a part of the group when they do this activity? Yes or no. If yes, then adjust. If no, don't participate. Don't interrupt. Don't get involved.
That was words of wisdom right there. Wow, that's crazy. I received the same advice like at the beginning of the week. Actually, a friend of mine was talking the situation at work. I mean, he's a teacher. I'm like, man, sometimes my coworkers, he's like, don't be involved. Don't talk about yourself. Don't do anything. It's just gonna go away. He said the same thing. and it's so true. Sometimes it's just about shut the fuck up, right? Like it's just don't say anything. But
if you're not invested enough to stop the thing, or engage with the thing,
you just stop. It's like it's the whole idea of trolling. Online, there's a world that's called trolling. Just don't troll. So
Yeah.
if you're not responsible, so the moral aspect is not there, just stop talking. Just stop feeding the fire. If the moral aspect is there, stay true to the responsibility, be a moral agent. If it's not there, just get off. Just don't say anything, run away. It's just gonna help everyone. It's just, you know what I'm saying? Oh wow, that's true. That's so great. That is a great word of wisdom right there. Yeah. And there is something I'm learning feed right now with Colin. Colin Cruikshank. He started to make some video recently. He's a great guy from Scotland. I've been playing Mage with this guy for a couple of years, and we just started to play feed. And I did exactly the same thing with him that I did tonight in this game. And I'm not saying that I'm testing, and I just realized it. Is that he created an encounter. So I am this guy in the game. I don't want to make it too long, but I'm this guy in the game, and he's just a scholar guy. He's about to become a vampire, and then I'm trying to walk in the street at night, coming back from my girlfriend's house, and I get hijacked by hoodlums, you know, like thieves. Want to steal my money because I'm a rich guy, and then there's a fight, and he's not a fighter. So he's trying to defend himself. So I keep on. I just stick to it. I reply. I defend myself. I get the shit beat out of me as a character. But I'm not running away. I'm just defend myself. Till the end, I'm ready to die as a character. As a player, I'm ready to die. And as a character, it's like, I'm going to defend myself. They're not going to fucking beat the shit out of me. But he's not a fighter. So I don't have the stats, and so I'm just rolling the dice. He's a GM, so he's the guy that he's on the other side, and now he feels bad. He's like, I don't want to kill that guy. It's the introduction session. It's not even. We didn't even start the session. It's like before you become a vampire. It's a vampire game.
Prelude.
The prelude. There you go. We're in the prelude. I don't want to kill you in the prelude. So, but I keep going. because I'm not gonna give them my money. Now there is a thing in role playing games that we discussed in the past. It's like, this is what my character will do attitude. Right? But if you don't play that, where is the satisfaction? You know what I'm saying? Like, I am this guy. This guy, he's a teacher. He teaches chemistry. He's a nerd somehow, but he's gonna get married, and he comes back from the girlfriend's house, and he's happy and all that, and something like that. The story, I don't remember exactly, but and he's getting jumped, so he's gonna defend himself. I'm defending myself. I roll just bad. If I was rolling average, would have been interesting and stuff. I rolled bad, and it happened, right? You know what I mean. And so I'm about to get killed.
They take his money.
And so he's in the game, and we are learning the game. So he was learning the thing, and I could feel as a player him feeling bad. So he was almost like trying to bring a stop to the thing, but this is GM Fiat. Oh man, it was such a good experience because we could discuss about that, and I could as a player and he as a GM learn something from that. Like, this is an important situation. If you let it go, you ruin the story. If you let it happen, I'm willing as a player to deal with the consequence. So it's really interesting because we let it happen. And I managed to finish it without dying according to rules, which is super satisfying. But I'm almost dead. And then there's this vampire lady that comes by the thing, and she finds me almost dead. It's the same story that fucking Interview with the Vampire. I'm almost dead. She finds me there, and then she charmed me. And then boom, I become a vampire. she kind of like saved my life, kind of thing. I was almost dead, but I played it to the end. You didn't do the GM fiat, and it becomes a super important part of the story.
Yeah.
Today I felt the same thing happen. I went to the end. I said, where are you willing to go, Anthony? You wanna kick my ass in that doorway? Go ahead, do it. So I went all the way. Instead of fighting you, I was even worse. And it's the idea, and a lot of role player are afraid of the death sentence and the thing. A lot of GM don't want to kill. I've did many videos about that, and me, I'm sometimes I feel like we need to understand each other, and that, and I don't care about dying in the first session. If it makes sense, it's gonna be super satisfying. I'm gonna do another guy, and we're gonna keep going. And but it's not everybody who plays like that, and this is another issue. But tonight I brought that to the table. That's how
It used to be that we played like that all the time. Character death
Yeah.
was frequent, common, and
Oh.
you can't be a Call of Cthulhu keeper without understanding the fact you have to be upfront. Like, don't get attached to the character in the way that you think it's going to make it all the way through to the end. It probably won't. So you have to be attached to the idea of how do you keep yourself as a player in the game all the way through to the end. And so, a lot of the changes made to Call of Cthulhu 7th edition are running counter to that. So it's part of the incoherence of it. It's like, yes, this is lethal, and yes, your sanity is going to be destroyed, but don't worry, your character's going to make it through to the end somehow. And it's just like, well, I don't know how that works. But so with me today, what I didn't want to do is, like you said, because it feels cheap, I didn't want to apply damage to your character.
But the problem is that the game works that way.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
The game works that way. So it's like, okay, I don't want to do this, and I've got this NPC that I don't want to spend very much time playing because he's a little boring for me.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be a trigger, not the whole session. And I know as soon as that scene started that we're going to be in this friggin' apartment dealing with these people forever. It was my fear. And I don't want that to happen. So what can I do? Well, the answer, nothing. And that's the wrong thought process to go down. Instead of just enjoying the moment of the assertion of Jorn's character.
Well, I want to interrupt the flow of thought. Here's my devil's advocate thought that I was having during this whole point is there is, at least to me, there's a certain amount of fiat involved, or GM fiat. Not that that's a bad thing. In the resolution in this game, because I don't know all the mechanics of feed, but the idea that your character lived and he lived. Even though you follow the mechanics, even though you follow the rules and feed and Colin didn't pull any punches. In a similar situation here in the Vale, there is a certain the consequences aren't entirely clear. So there's a certain amount of fiat. Like if you're in a similar situation, the game master has to kind of decide, okay, well they stop beating the crap out of you. There's no real guidelines. Now in that scene when you're at the door and you try that sway move, and I think you rolled a 4 if I remember correctly. It was bad.
Yeah.
It was a total miss. My instinctual reaction, if I was the MC, this is what I would have done. Here's my armchair quarterback crap. Is the game's telling me I can make as hard a move as I like, and I would have thrown your ass right out the door. You would have slammed against the wall, probably taken 2 or 3 harm, and there would have been nothing you could have done about it.
Yeah, that's what I should have done.
The game tells me that's what I can do.
Yeah.
There is no room for
there's no room for that in
negotiation.
Yeah, but in PBTA, you're right. You can do it, and this is something I think all of us we didn't do enough. That's why the game feels so forgiving. right?
Yeah, because we are forgiving. This is what we are incorrectly applying to the game.
We don't do the cheap move enough. But the game allows it. Allow the GM to do so. The player has so much power that to balance that, the GM is kind of like allowed by design, by the rule, now becoming cultural. Like, he's able to fucking, bring it back to you like the way he wants it. And you kind of like to have to deal with it. I think this is what you meant by the comment from the guy. The only problem I have with what you've mentioned, Ivan, earlier about that comment about no, saying no.
Right.
Vincent Baker says no, say yes. So you can be really mean, really hard by saying yes. No saying no. I'm pretty sure you can, because the thing is that the GM, when he's applying the MC move, when he's applying the MC move, is not always in reaction of. Sometimes you can do as the GM out of nowhere, and this is why it's frustrating for Anthony, I think, because it's counterintuitive. Out of nowhere, you go, boom, here's something. So now you don't have to say no. You can still say yes all the time. So you're coherent with the rules and with the philosophy of the game, but you bring the pain.
Right. I see what you're saying, but like, what happens at that point is that the GM doesn't say no, the dice just said no.
Oh, that's another thing. When the dice say no, the dice say no.
That's
in
no.
my
That's
case,
like,
in my case, the dice say no. But the rest of the game, the right dice.
The guy's comment on the session was that, the question is, how can I, that question, how can I get you to do something? How can I persuade you to do something?
Mm, yeah.
It's okay to say you can't. That's your answer. I answered you truthfully. You now know you can't persuade me to do the thing.
But in the game, if the roles are, say yes.
Yeah, but it doesn't tell you, even in that role, even that move, it doesn't tell you. You ask a question, the GM has to answer the question, how can I get you to do something? There's nothing in that says, and the GM has to tell you, that yes, the answer is, here's what you're going to do, and it's going to work. One of the valid answers is you can't.
Yeah, that's why I was saying,
even on a
you can go up to a homeless guy,
yeah,
and use sway and say, how can I get you to get me a jet plane? There has to be room in there to say, dude, I'm a homeless person. You can't.
Yeah.
That's part of the principles. Always say what the fiction demands.
Always say what the fiction
demands. And say what the truth demands.
That's a good, that's a good comment. That's a good comment.
And that's not an adversarial thing. There's that moment of like, how can I get you to show me how to turn lead into gold? Well, actually, I can't.
Yeah, and that is nice because it's clear. Now you know. You know. You got your answer. You can't.
But we've been, got our velvet gloves on, and we've been careful. And it's like, well, the player's signaling that they want to be able to solve the problem this way, so I have to accommodate them. And it's like, no, gravity. We're going in this direction. You can't move on. Find another way. Come on, let's go.
There you go. That, oh my God. This, my friend. So to all the viewers right now, this is learning RPG. What we just learned something together, because this is so true. This is so true. Because I think I remember, actually, I mentioned something. Anthony, I want to know, are you going to give me the answer about the data? And you're like, as I was like, no, I think you don't understand. My question is the answer about the data. And Anthony wanted to say, I don't know. And so that is super, super important. Yeah. And it makes a way more clear distinction, because you can say no. So if
I did. I said he's not going to answer that question until he knows what the data is.
Me personally, I didn't understood it in that way enough. So it was like I was keep asking.
Yeah, I think that's something that I've noticed in that, and a lot of the PBTA games is they suffer from some ambiguity in writing, and they end up being kind
Oh
of
yeah.
cryptic. And the message
Oh
that people tend to walk away with is life is going to be like a birthday party.
yeah.
Whatever I want, as opposed to like. It's like they should have a page or half a page that says, "Oh, by the way, you're just not always going to get what you want because they spelled out for the MC. Here's some things, but it needs to be, I think, spelled out for the players as well. By the way, just to let you know that there's going to be times when you're
So
No,
by the way, the role that you got in that case, are you going to tell me about the data, right? No, I'm not going to tell you about the data until I know what it is. I want to include you, but you don't know my motives for why I want to include you, right? But I'll let you know I want to include you in this investigation, right? Then he leaves and he meets Tess in the hallway, who says, "Hi, I'm a murder bot, and if you encounter any unconnected murders, come visit me, because I'm planning on killing that guy soon." So he leaves,
oh man.
and he immediately contacts you with his personal contact information,
Yeah.
right? And you get the currency as a player of one obligation.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that was great. And then I said to Tess, I trust the guy. I said I trust the guy. He gave me all I need to trust him. So, but
But
it's
that
good.
doesn't happen without Tess threatening him in the hallway.
But you know that moment. You know when Vincent Baker say role playing is a conversation. He says
Hmm.
that he's the one who brought that to the table. When I said I trust the guy, I'm actually saying to my MC, I'm good. I'm good. It's a conversation, and
Yeah.
it's really a conversation. So for that, he's really good. Like in terms in PBTA games about design, like in terms, if you play that way, you send these messages. But the thing though is that this is so subtle that if we don't talk to the player like we do right now, it's not possible to develop uh,
Right.
these communication channels, right?
It's a
And
compromise.
it's compromise. It's communicating intentions. Like, look, I'm in character. I'm saying to that person, but I'm talking to my MC. I'm saying, look, this NPC, I trust the guy, but I'm saying that in character to the other guy, to the other player. And so it's like, it's all this conversation going on, and collaborative storytelling is as to have that layer. And it's really counterintuitive to a lot of traditional approach to gaming because
Well,
that
no, this type of collaboration, it gets so easy to fall into the dogmatic response that, oh, well, traditional gaming wasn't collaborative. I mean, that's just a crock.
you don't agree, yeah.
No, it's just, where does the collaboration lie? And if you're talking about the situation with a controlling personality as a game master with a railroad, who's I mean, literally putting people in a dungeon where all decisions are pre-understood, and
Hmm.
the players are simply picking them. In that case, there's very little collaboration. Except, look, the very first time I played, pretty much ever, was in the Keep on the Borderlands.
Oh my god, wow.
Now, the very first session, I was supposed to be there. I couldn't be there. So play went on without me. So they get into the caves of chaos, and it's terrible, and blah, blah, blah. And, then my character is introduced as having arrived late. And the first thing I do is, I know as a player that they're in the caves, but I'm playing a thief. So I go to the keep, and I collect rumors and do a variety of things along those lines. And I discover just how awful the caves of chaos actually are. So
I'm
I
still
don't
here.
go.
Oh my god, you don't go.
That's a
I
win.
don't go.
Oh man.
And then when the survivors come back, I interviewed them. What did you
Oh man.
discover? And I sold that information to the next set of characters who came along, because they all died in the caves of chaos.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So as long as the game master is willing to give you that space, which mine was, then even in a, you know, you're in a cave kind of situation, there's still collaboration about what the outcomes are. So it's just dogma of people saying, oh, this is collaborative and that isn't. It's just, where is the collaboration, and when do certain parts of it happen and when do certain parts of it don't, and what's being collaborated on, and stuff like that. So no, that's not something I buy into. But in this type of game, the way collaboration works requires a certain type of language, a certain type of approach, and stuff that I accept.
I agree. I agree. I really do agree with that. You made a really strong case about collaboration as a culture of play, more than just a byproduct of design mechanism.
And there's an interesting thing that I noticed as well, because we were talking about the transparency of the character to everybody else, and what their motivations might be, and understanding like what's going on with this character. And very often it's difficult to understand if you're playing in such a manner like I tend to play, where you're not broadcasting all the character's thoughts or intentions or what have you, and really important to understand the character, and a lot of it is talking to each other, talking to the players. One of the things I've noticed that's happened in this Delta Green play by post game is, not only do we have all these other things we're talking about, the inner life of the characters in this document, but at the same time we have this little Google Hangouts chat going on, and so we're kind of having that coffee shop conversation after the game about the characters, and clarifying, hey, this is why I did this, or this is why my character said that, or oh, that's what you were thinking, and we're having that in real time. But it's not that awkward conversation as if we're having it right at the table, like we're stopping and saying, oh, and the reason I'm saying it, this is that. That's really kind of a neat experience, because we're getting all this information all at once, like in real time as we're playing, and I guess for me, like maybe the right way to play a game like this is to somehow broadcast all that midstream, because there's a lot of things that like I naturally do with tests where, and I've had other people tell me before, like, I wish less playing together than just talking about playing, where they're saying, well, you really should broadcast all these things, the inner thoughts of your character, and tell us why you're doing this and whatnot. And there's moments I kind of scratch my head when even like when G was saying some things like your character's only asking questions, or only doing this, I'm trying to get more of a feel for them, or push them a little bit more. And to me, the experience I'm having as a character is pretty rich. And if anything, they're more of a sniper. They're not going about the world broadcasting in a flamboyant manner. Here's what I'm doing, and here's why I'm doing it. But one day your stuff is gone, or whatever it is that they're planning on doing. And it's, but these were the kind of conversations you'd have like after a session. Hey, why was your character doing this? And that's why we're doing that. But it doesn't happen in the middle of the session. But apparently, it seems like it's almost more important to be broadcasting more of that play.
It's an important statement or remark or analysis you just provided there. Like, a lot of the important, meaningful, you use the word cogent, or just like how to bring coherence to what just happened.
Right.
Sometime happened in the post games conversation. This is why I was feeling so bad to left so early, because there were so many things to said. Look at this conversation has been going on for more than an hour. Almost 2 hours. It's just like there was a lot to be said, and it's important. And this is why we did the reflections video as well, because we always have the post-game discussions in the Veil, because I think for all of us, it was one of the first PBTA game, right? Am I correct?
Like,
first one to play, yeah.
Yeah, first one to play.
In a resisting environment.
Yeah, definitely. So it was the first one. We always wanted to try one of those. We never did. And, it was an opportunity to Cyberpunk as well. Me and Anthony discussed about Shadowrun and Cyberpunk for a long time. So, hey, let's try this one. and especially with the emotion thing, which is something that I'm gonna come back one day on a video. But so it was like every session, the post game conversation was important, was meaningful, help us understand each other. Ivan and I never played together, so we needed to understand each other. Same thing with Anthony and I. We played in the past. We kind of understand each other, but now I understand way more. And so, but these conversations are crucial, so essential. But it's too bad. Just like Ivan just said, it's too bad that in play we don't get it sometimes. And it's just I think it's part of the hobby somehow. It's the fun for me. It's kind of fun. Like we play, especially with stranger. You play, and you realize afterward you're like, fuck, I kind of ruined the experience, or oh shit, I went too far, or oh fuck, I took the spotlight, or anything. It's just
right, whatever the issue was.
mm-hmm.
Well, I think we're reaching kind of a natural ending point, and I'm being begged for attention, which is scattering my attention.
Yeah. Perfect.
Hey,
guys, thank you very much for this conversation. It was honestly one of the best live analysis conversation I had about RPG. I've learned a lot. I think we talked an hour 30 minutes at least, and there was so much good stuff there. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Right on.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so we waiting for you guys to for the next session. Thank you.
Next
thank
session.
You guys. Have a good night or a good day.
You too.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.